there. You're tuned in to the Inspired Hive podcast, where we bring together a community of leaders, creators, and innovators. Each episode is inspired by targeted conversation and power insights that will help you thrive in business and life. If you're ready to level up your leadership and fuel your success, you're in the right place. I am so thrilled to have Abby Refsland here with us. She is the founder and executive director of Agate Social Works, which is an agency that fills the gap to provide school social work services to unserved schools through a really creative, collaborative, shared resource model. Abby is a licensed independent clinical social worker and a licensed school social worker in the state of Minnesota. I've had the pleasure and the privilege to see firsthand how leaning into her personal growth has had such a positive and powerful impact for Agate. Abby has inspired me to push myself to the next level, and I know what she shares today will resonate with those listening as well. Join us in the conversation. And I've had the pleasure of getting to know Abby over the past several years through her volunteer work with the Minnesota School Social Work Association. And there she serves in a volunteer role on a very operational, busy committee. She's also a busy mom. She's a wife. She's an entrepreneur and really an all-around go-getter. And she's one of the most bubbly people you will ever meet. Abby, it really is a true pleasure to get to share some time with you. Welcome to the Inspired Hive podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Before we talk about where things are now, I would really love to hear a bit about how your story began.
Yeah. So it's a fun story. I was working in a school and my position was eliminated as a school social worker. And so they determined that they didn't need a school social worker. And so I was able to find a job in a charter school, which at the time I didn't know much about charter schools. And I've learned a lot about them over the past 10 plus years. And so I ended up moving from that eliminated position to the new position as a school social worker. And I realized quickly when I started there, charter schools operate a lot differently and you wear a lot of hats. And so I quickly became the social worker and the special ed coordinator. And so I was kind of dual rolling it there for a while. And then through my work in that, we decided to start a family. And so I was like, I can't do two jobs at once anymore. And so I was able to work with them to move my position to just the special ed coordinator, which was super wonderful for my family. But I really missed working directly with kids. I missed that part of it. I missed connecting with families. I missed all of those things. While I'm doing the special ed coordinator, I have a chance to network with a bunch of different charter school friends and colleagues who I guess have now become friends. But I learned that not every charter school has a school social worker. And I was shocked by that and also kind of disappointed because I just really believe that every kid in the state of Minnesota and really in our country should have access to a school social worker. And so, in doing some networking and connecting with people, I took a leap about 8 years ago and I signed my first contract to be a contracted school social worker for schools that didn't have a social worker. Since then, I have added employees and we've expanded, and we are now serving over 20 schools. And at this current moment, we have 14 employees serving those schools throughout the state, some virtual, some in person. And so that's where we are today. And we just continue to come up with new ideas and grow.
Wow. In all the time I've known you, I don't think I've ever asked you this question before in terms of, how did all this come to be? And there's a couple things you said there that really resonate for me at the moment. One is that this all started because a position was eliminated, something that you were familiar with, something that was kind of, dare I say, the expectation or kind of the norm. And I think that really, to me, lands right now because we've got a lot of folks having this same type of circumstance occurring. And yet, from that, you have just had this amazing exploration of all sorts of new opportunities. And now you're employing 14 people. Like, not only is it that you found something that worked for you and your family, but you're now, an entrepreneur who's employing others to do more of what you do. Developing that process, and I'm guessing, whatever 12 years ago when that happened, this is not kind of what you thought would be a
Not
conversation
not
you'd be having today.
not at all. No, I was an engaged young social worker thinking, "What am I gonna do now?" Right? And
Mm.
yeah, 3 kids, and 14 years later, we're here, and it's been a journey, and it's actually been one that I feel like has been really helpful for me in doing supervision for other social workers, is talking about change and how that's can be really uncomfortable, but when things happen, other opportunities pop up, right? And I think that has shifted my perspective just as a professional and a person, because it felt like the worst thing that could have ever happened when I got that notice that they weren't going to have a social worker anymore. And then it did. It opened up all these opportunities and um, great connections and network, and led me to where I am today.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful to have that insight and recognition that sometimes the things we either fear the most or dread the most or think might be the worst case scenario really can become the most interesting and meaningful adventure that we have. And I think,
Mhm.
certainly a powerful mind shift in thinking about understanding change is constant and that really is meant to be our growth path.
Yeah. Yeah, it really
Wow.
kind of forces you out of your comfort zone, which
Mhm.
is hard to do willingly, right? Like
Yeah.
we get comfortable and we want to just kind of stay there and be there. But constant growth I think is important, but sometimes we need that extra push to get us to that space for sure.
Or even recognizing that that constant growth is essential to our survival. And
Mhm.
um, I love how that's a message that you pass along to the folks that you work with, to the folks that you're supervising, but I would imagine also to your clients that, this doesn't have to be a bad thing. It can be a really meaningful and powerful thing to change your life. So,
Yep,
yeah.
for sure.
Thank you for sharing about kind of how agate was created and crafted. And I'm curious where you get your inspiration from, maybe who you look to or things that are that inspiration for you.
Well, you are one of those people, Margot. I've always, since we've met, I feel like I've really had an opportunity to learn so much from you, but also just like watching you grow and learning from your wisdom and just your knowledge and um, your ability to gently encourage and push people to do a better job. I think I need someone like you in my life to do that, because I do get a little stagnant and comfortable sometimes. And so being able to talk through things for sure you've been a huge role in that. And then I think, kind of on like a bigger platformer, Bruce Perry was a huge part of my master's work at the University of Minnesota. And he wasn't my teacher, but we did a ton of work with his books and his framework and looking at attachment and through child development and the importance of co-regulation. And kind of that's been sort of the basis of my just thought in how I frame and train and teach my team how to support kids in schools, because there's a lot of dysregulated people there and there's a lot of opportunity for dysregulation when we're in schools. Lori Desautel has been another kind of newer person that I've done a ton of listening to and reading and some of those pieces. And then as a parent too, I love Dr. Becky Kennedy talking about good inside. And I think one of the things that resonates most with me is like looking at, she calls it the MGI, the most generous interpretation of a situation. And I have shared that with a lot of colleagues, a lot of students, and trying to help us look at perspective and just reframing some of how we're looking at the world. It's been a hard 5 years. And so just being able to take a step back and really try to think and reframe what is the most generous, interpretation of this situation, how this behavior, this whatever it is that's happening, whether I'm talking to an adult or a student. It's I think those are some of my biggest people, I guess, that I follow and kind of try to strive to embody those concepts and theories and that research in my parenting and in my work.
I love how children that we work with or birth give us some of the biggest motivations, right, for learning. And we have lots of opportunities with conversations with them. But the fact that you're thinking about all the people in the school, I kind of giggle a little bit about because we're all struggling these days
Mhm.
at times with that regulation and that message that you share in terms of what's the most generous. I was thinking, what's the kindest way that we could be, curious about these situations or whatever might be happening, and really thinking about the expansion of all the different perspectives rather than the conclusion we jump to in that moment. And I love
Mhm.
those influences and that inspiration.
Yep.
I'm curious what maybe your biggest lesson or biggest learning piece has been for you as you've embarked upon this entrepreneurial journey.
I think something that I continue to grow and like it's a lesson that I'm learning, I would say actively learning. I don't feel like I've mastered it at all. But just being able to sort of separate myself from the work sometimes. And I say that not I've gotten really good at not bringing my my student stories and some of the stress and stuff that people are experiencing, but more um, we're not the best fit for everyone, right? And that isn't because we're not doing a great job. It's because their school model or their theories and their philosophies and their whatever they're working on within their building just doesn't line up super great with what we're doing right now. And I used to take that really, really personally, like being able to separate our work from me as a person and how that fits into different systems has is something that I'm continually trying to work on, right? Just trying to figure out the best way to still feel confident and not have the wind knocked out of my sails when something doesn't go exactly the way I'm anticipating it, and how to keep moving forward and figure out. And again, sometimes those opportunities have been like, okay, well, maybe we need to look at what we're doing and kind of shift and find a different pathway as well. So I think that's one of the things that I'm still working on learning, but has been really helpful for me in this journey.
That's a really powerful lesson. And I think so much of the time as entrepreneurs and providers, we're really invested in all we can do and doing as much as we can. And that being able to have that separation between the service mindset and kind of the business mindset, like you said, we're not everybody's cup of tea, and that's okay. We can connect them with someone who is, or a group that is, or a philosophy that might serve them in a more connected, aligned way to their thing, without that being a negative kind of circle back or self-talk for us in terms of, oh, well, they didn't like me, right? And it
Yes.
it's really, I think, one of those things in entrepreneurship that is such a big important component of being able to do what we do, but also have it not be personal, even though it's our huge investment.
Yes.
And so I love that highlight of that lesson of being able to work on that separation.
Yeah.
You not only are an entrepreneur, you're also a provider. But you also serve a role as a leader as a volunteer leader in an organization. And I wonder if you might speak into a little bit of the distinction, or does it feel the same for you in all those roles, or is it a bit different? And how do you navigate that kind of separation in those spaces?
Yeah. I think the when I first started with the School Social Work Association, you're surrounded by brilliant social workers that, some of them have more experience, some of them have less, but they all are they speak so eloquently and and so I think at the beginning of that, I felt really intimidated and I wasn't as much of a leader in until I took on the leadership position of working with the professional development committee. And so when I first started there, I think, yeah, I was a little bit more subdued and a little bit more quiet. And then as I got into that role, you feel this sense of like, okay, I got to do this. And part of doing the work, I think, builds your confidence, right? You hear people
Oh,
say sometimes fake it till you make it. And I think that opportunity for me to connect with people that I wouldn't necessarily otherwise be connecting with really did was inspiring, but also really was a confidence boosting component for me in a leadership role. And I also had other people around me to support that role. My co-chair is phenomenal. And yeah, we've been able to connect a lot. But I think doing that work, it's stepping out of your comfort zone. I would have never, again, 5 years ago, even imagined that I would be doing this role, but I had an opportunity, I took it, and so you kind of just grow into it. And I think that's one of the things that I continue to try to remind myself is that you just have to do. And sometimes I'm learning as I'm going, right? Like
mhm.
because it's life and there isn't a handbook to read about how to do this the best and how to do that the best. You just do it. And I think then you learn what works and what doesn't. But being a leader, I think, has really my opportunity in that volunteer role has really, I think, helped flourish that leadership within
Mhm.
myself and helped me to have different conversations with my own staff and just think about things with our own organization differently about we don't have to just stay here in this one little niche, area. We can do this and we can do that and we can do lots of different things. So I think it's been helpful for me in that capacity.
It's really interesting to me, a few of the things that you just said in terms of we learn by doing. Like, we have to take the opportunity. It's not just that it's presented to us, but we have to kind of walk through that door, try it on, grow with that. And I think so many of us from a corporate standpoint see, oh, well, we apply for a new position and we have to have all those qualifications in order to get the job. And I think it- that's certainly one way of contemplating it, but that's not the way of the world. That we know what the role involves or entails, but it doesn't mean we have to check all those boxes to even apply. And some of those things will be things that we're learning and growing along the way, and that fit better as we learn them by doing than if we had them already in our pocket, ready to roll out the first day. And how that translates into your confidence and how that translates into your leadership conversations and the things you're telling yourself as a leader, and also the things that you're helping those that you're leading and rising up as well. And such powerful insight. Thank you so much for sharing. I know, but I would love for you to share with folks listening some of the things that you've got going on. Brag on yourself for a little bit because I know Agate's growing and adventuring in some new directions. So I'd love to hear more.
Yeah, thank you. We are, continuing to do our direct services, so going into schools and helping support kids directly. But one of the things I think that has become more evident to me as I think COVID kind of started the ball rolling, and but it just continues to roll like we this is maybe our new normal. But I think over the last 5 years you see a lot of just exhaustion in educators. And so I think as we continue to provide direct service and feel like that's, that will always be part of us because we want kids to have access to school social work. I think our bigger, kind of one of our newer adventures is to try to provide some professional development to some of the staff in schools to help them kind of start to identify how they can regulate and how they can take care of themselves so that they're not feeling so depleted. Being a teacher is hard. Working in education is hard. It's the best of the best, right? Like that's who goes into education, and we need them to stay there and feel fueled and feel appreciated and feel good. And so what are some ways that we can help them to do that so that they can take care of one another, so that their leaders can take care of them, and that someone can take care of the leaders too, right? Like everybody needs to feel appreciated and feel good. And then also to recognize, like, what do I need right in this moment, and give them permission to take that time to just shut the lights off and take a few breaths, because the kids will benefit from that too. The parts that I've loved about this opportunity to work with so many different schools is I get to touch a lot of different educators, and just having a quick 5-minute conversation and being able to have you tried this, and just getting them to think about things or reframe one situation does make a difference in how the students respond and how they feel about their work. And so that's a huge piece that I've been dreaming about for a long time, and it's finally coming to fruition. So I'm super excited about that. And then Minnesota recently passed legislation for third-party billing. So school social workers can bill for mental health and special education for the services that we are already providing. And so one of the pieces that you need for that, though, is a mental health professional. And so our hope is that we can help some of our smaller districts, charters in more rural areas, in providing that mental health professional to allow their social workers, whether they're LSWs, LISWs, LGSWs, to continue to do the amazing work that they're doing, because everybody knows their own system and their own school the best. They're loved, they're cared about. And we want them to continue to thrive and feel like they can be part of this mental health and special ed Medicaid reimbursement piece. And so we're going to kind of venture into that avenue as well. So we've got a couple new things heading into the 25-26 school year, and we're really excited to see where they go.
As you're laying all that out, I feel like part of what Agate is doing is taking care of the village. And it's this opportunity to be able to help the staff help themselves, and that has such a big ripple effect throughout the whole environment. That's one of the things that I've really appreciated about folks in mental health care services, that it's not just about a single patient or client. It really is about serving the community around them as well. Being able to offer those opportunities for others to learn, I just am so excited to see where this goes for you, because I know it's such a needed resource.
Thank you. We are excited.
As we're kind of coming to the end today, any piece of advice that you might have for folks listening? Maybe it's something someone shared with you, or a big aha, or maybe it's something you learned the hard way, but something that you want to leave the listeners with.
I think one of the most important things I've learned in, well, a couple of things. One is you are the best regulation toolkit. You as a person are the best way to help another person regulate. There isn't a perfect book, there isn't a perfect song, there isn't anything. It's you as a person. So if you can regulate your own self, you will be able to help other people regulate. And I think another important thing as we think about entrepreneurs and people that are working in mental health and just all helping professions is the lower your boundaries, the more resentment that you will have. And I heard that in a training right after COVID, when we all started, kind of working from home, and there wasn't a boundary. It was like, oh, I just walk into this room and I'm at work, and then I walk into this room and I'm going to have my lunch in the kitchen. And so being able to be aware of where your boundaries need to be to help you be happy and healthy and feel successful, but also still survive, right? Like it's easy to just want to pour everything into one cup, and we all have multiple cups that we need to make sure are maintaining some level of balance. And so the boundaries piece is something that I try really hard to keep for myself, but also for my staff. Happy employees make for better workers. And so it's something that I'm really trying to be cognizant about. And yeah, and then just giving yourself the time and space to regulate, because that matters more than anything.
Those are two very powerful and kind of integrated pieces there. And I talk with so many professionals who, take their work on vacation with them. And I think, that really is a piece of, you don't truly get away to really get that rejuvenation and kind of revival that you need. And in addition, you're also still dragging along everything, whether it's in your kitchen or whether it's on vacation. And such an important skill to really cultivate and be consistent with in terms of those boundaries. Abby, thank you so much for those gigantic nuggets and sharing some of the really sweet goodness that you've discovered in your journey. I really am grateful for your sharing a little bit of your time with us today. This is such an important component of being able to bring some of that knowledge to our community. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for having me. It's been fun to reflect. Sometimes I think when you're in the middle of the chaos, you kind of forget, why am I doing this? Like, what's the why behind this, or how? And so it's been really nice to be here and to be able to kind of think back about, why am I doing this? And it's to make schools better. And so I really appreciate the opportunity to be with you today. And I'm grateful for the invite. So
Oh,
thank
thank you.
you.
Well, I wrap all of the podcast episodes up with a quote. I select the quote ahead of time. I don't always know the things that, the details of what we're going to chat about, but the quote I selected for our episode today is from Khalil Gibran, I think is how you say their name. The smallest act of kindness is worth more than the greatest intention. It's so amazing to me how powerful the quote is, but how it really weaves into a lot of the things that you've shared with us today in terms of taking action to build that confidence and to have that impact in the world and to help others grow to their best. I appreciate you listening in on this episode of the Inspired Hive podcast. Be sure to follow us on social media at Inspired Hive Podcast and subscribe to stay in the loop for future episodes. We're looking forward to our next conversation. Until then, keep living inspired.